red books right here that is on page 264. In addition to your Megillah, can I hand any to you two?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Anybody else?
Steve, I'm eager to hear about your visit on the Worldwide Rap Day. I want to hear about your experience, okay?
So
Okay.
folks, Chag Sameach, welcome to Purim 5783. Rabbi Marcia Tilchin is going to start us off with a brief 15-minute evening service for Purim. There will be Kaddish for those who need to say, and then we'll jump into the Megillah.
Woohoo. Okay. We are on page 264 and we begin standing, if that's okay. Vehu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit v'hirba lahashiva po v'lo yair kol chamato Adonai Hoshia melech yanenu v'yom koreinu Baruchu et Adonai hamavorach
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam vaed. You may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila. Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimoch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otan limadat kenan. V'yahavatecha al tasir mimenu li'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. V'hayam shemo et yishmo mitzvotai asher anachim mitzavetcha. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe Lemor. Jesus. Adonai Elohechem Emet. V'yemunah kol zot v'kayam aleinu ki Adonai Eloheinu v'yein zulato v'anachnu Yisrael amo. Hoseged olot v'ancheker. Mispar samach shem. U'malchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe u'Miriam u'vnei Yisrael lechanu shira v'simcha rabah v'yamru chulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh norate hilo do seifelem. Middle of 267. Malchutecha ra'u v'anecha v'okei ayam livnei Moshe Ze'elianu v'yamru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar kivad Adonai et Yaakov u'gelom yad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai ga'al Yisrael Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'amidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ushemort Seitenu Avoenu L'chaim U'Lishalom Me'atav Yad Olam Baruch Atah Adonai Shomer Amo Yisrael La'ad. We're on 268. Baruch Adonai Le'olam Amen V'Amen. Yehi Chavod Adonai Le'olam Yismach Adonai B'Maasav Yishem Adonai Mevarach. Hoshienu. Baruch Adonai Bayom, Baruch Adonai Balayla, Baruch Adonai B'Shachmeinu, Baruch Adonai B'Kumeinu. Yiruainenu v'yismach libenu v'tegel nafshenu b'shuatecha b'yamet be'emor l'tzion malach Elohayich Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch li'olam v'ed ki ha'malchut shelcha hi omeat timloch b'chavod ki ein lanu melech ela ata baruch atah Adonai ha'melech b'chvodo tamid imloch aleinu li'olam v'ed v'al kol masav Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah B'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yamechon v'chaydechol beit Yisrael b'galav izman kariv v'imru amen Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitparit romam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha B'richu li'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tush berchata v'nechamata damiran b'alma v'imru amen. We're going to begin the Amidah together on 270. We'll be together through the Kedusha, and then we'll go silently. After the Modim paragraph, you want to add the insert for Purim, which is on 431. So you get a little flipping. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol. Oh, what page are we on? Mevigo El Ibnei B'neihem L'man Shemo B'yamava Melech Ozeru Fokedu Moshiu Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach Umarid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei Meitim B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim B'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha bal giburot umidom elav melech memit umechayev umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah hachayot meitim baruch atah Adonai mechayei hameitim. I'm so sorry about that. I am so satutzt that I somehow thought we were doing mincha, and that's why kavod.
Maybe it's because it's not yours.
I was so confused that I was like, and then I was like, where's the kedusha? But when you came up to me and you said it's mariv, I was like, but what you really wanted to say is you should not be singing this out loud. I was like, what? Okay, here we go. Page 280. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'yalmad divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yimechon v'chaydechol beit Yisrael bagalav izman karivim romain yehi shmei rabbah mevarach leolam olamei maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha v'reichu la'ela min kol verchata v'shirata tushvachata v'nechamata damiran b'yalma v'imromein titkabal tzalot hon uvad hon dechol Yisrael kodama v'hon divishmaya v'imromein yesh lama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imromein oh se shalom v'imromav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yal kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol. Kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom ha'hu yihi Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Kaddish Yatom, all those who are reciting Mourner's Kaddish, either observing a yortzeit or in a period of mourning, please join me as we honor the memories of our loved ones. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'yalma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam olamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Thank you.
Before we Happy Purim, everybody. Thanks for joining for our traditional Megillah reading. And in a moment, Rabbi Tilchin is going to start us off with chapter 1. We have all kinds of readers. We're going to be reading the whole Megillah in both Hebrew and in English, different chapters alternating. But before we start, I just want to say something brief about Megillat Esther. So Megillat Esther, we know, means the scroll, Megillah, of Esther. It also, though, the word Esther, and there's lots of rabbinic teaching around this, is connected to the word that means hidden, Hester. So Esther is also another meaning for the name Esther is hidden. So then what that also comes down to is that Megillah also comes from the Hebrew Megaleh, which means to reveal. So Megillat Esther, as we know as the scroll of Esther, can also be translated as revealing the hidden. Revealing the hidden. And one of the things that the rabbis really struggled with as to whether to include this book in the Hebrew Bible or not was the fact that God's name is not in it at all. So just try to find it as we read. Try to find God's name in here, and it's not here, which they decided to include it for all kinds of reasons, but to really say that just as we read the story of God being hidden in this amazing miracle, so too in each of our lives, God is hidden and sometimes is revealed in moments. But what would it be like if in any given moment that we were feeling stressed, disconnected, isolated, we just remembered it's just because God's hidden. How do I open to? How do I receive the miracles that are in front of me? So as we read Megillat Esther, I want to invite you to reflect also on your own life on the hidden blessings and presence of God.
Love that. So nice. Revealing the hidden. Oh. This is beautiful. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mikra Megillah. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahemu bazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Amen. Vayehi b'yamei Achashverosh Hu Achashverosh hamelech mehodu v'yadku sheva v'yesrimu mea medina bayamim hahem keshevet hamelech Achashverosh al kisei malchuto asher b'shushana b'ra B'shana b'ra b'shnat shalosh l'malko asamishte l'chol sara v'yavadav chel paras umadai hapartumim v'sarei hamedinot lefanav Beharoto et osher kevod malchuto v'et yakar tiferet gedulato yamim rabim shimonim uma'at yom uvimlot hayamim ha'ele asa melech Lechol ha'am hanimseim v'shushana bira lemigadol v'yad katan b'shte shivat yamim b'chatzar ginat bitan hamelech chor karpas u'dechelet achuz b'chevlei vutz v'yargaman al galili chesef be'amudei sheish mitot zahav achesef al ritzpat b'hat v'sheish v'dara v'socharet v'hashkot b'chlei zahav v'chelim mekelim shonim v'yayin malchut rav ki yad hamelech v'hashtiach hadat V'ein ones kichein yisad hamelech al kol rav beito la'asod kirtzon ish ve'ish gam vashti hamalka asta mishte nashim beit hamalchut asher lemelech Achashverosh Bayom hashvi'i ketov lev hamelech bayayin amar limehuman bistach arbona bigtav avakta zeitar v'karkas shivat hasarisim hamishartim et penei hamelech Achashverosh lehavi et vashti hamalka Lifnei hamelech becheter malchut leharot ha'amim v'hasarim et yafya kitova marehi v'timaein hamalka vashti lavo bidavar hamelech asher biyad sarisim vayiksof hamelech me'od v'chamato ba'aravo Vayomer hamelech lahachachamim yodei ha'itim כי כן דבר המלך לפני כל יודעי דת ודין. והקרוב אליו קרשנה שתר עד מטה תרשיש מרסנה ממוכן שיבת שרי פרס ומדי. רואה פני המלך היושבים ראשונה במלכות כדת מה לעשות במלכה ושתי על אשר לא עשתה את מאמר המלך אחשוורוש ביד הסריסים ויאמר ממוכן לפני המלך והשרים לא על המלך לבדו עבתה ושתי המלכה כי על כל השרים ועל כל העמים אשר בכל מדינות המלך אחשוורוש כי יצא דבר המלכה על כל הנשים להבזות בעליהם בעיניהם באמרם המלך אחשוורוש אמר להביא את ושתי המלכה לפניו ולא באה. והיום הזה תאמרנה שרות פרס ומדי אשר שמעו את דבר המלכה לכל שרי המלך וכדאי בזיון וקצף. ואם על המלך טוב יצא דבר מלכות מלפניו וייכתב בדתי פרס. Hold on. It's my commentary. Hold on. Paras umadai velo ya'avor asher lo tavo vashti lifnei hamelech achashverosh umalchuta yitain hamelech lirauta hatova mimena v'nishma pitgam hamelech asher ya'aseh v'chol malchuto ki rabahi v'chol hanashim yitain yikar levaleihen lemigadol v'yad katan vayitav hadavar be'enei hamelech v'hasarim ויעש המלך כי דבר ממוכן וישלח ספרים על כל מדינות המלך על מדינה ככתבה ועל עם בעם כלשונו להיות כל איש שורר בביתו ומדבר כלשון עמו.
There's non-alcoholic options too.
Lots of libation.
Here, Brad.
And there's a chocolate liqueur if they're into chocolate. After these events, when King Ahasuerus's wrath had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed upon her. So the king's attendants advised, "Let beautiful virgin girls be sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of the kingdom, and let them gather every beautiful virgin girl to Shushan the capital, to the harem under the charge of Haggai, chamberlain of the king, custodian of the women, and let their cosmetics be provided. Then let the girl who finds favor in the king's eyes become queen in Vashti's stead." The plan pleased the king, and he acted accordingly. There was a Jewish man in Shushan, the capital, whose name was Mordechai, son of Yair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, and a Benjaminite, who had been exiled from Jerusalem with the exiles that had been exiled along with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had sent into exile. He had raised his cousin Hadassah, also called Esther, for she had neither father nor mother. The girl was shapely and beautiful, and when her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her as his daughter. Now, when the king's order and edict became known, and many girls were gathered to Shushan, the capital, under the charge of Haggai, Esther was also taken to the palace under the charge of Haggai, the custodian of the women. The girl found favor in his eyes and won his kindness, so that he hurried to provide her with her cosmetics and meals, and 7 maids that were to be given her from the palace. He also transferred her and her maids to the best quarters in the harem. Esther did not divulge her race or ancestry, for Mordecai had instructed her not to tell. Every day Mordecai would stroll in front of the harem courtyard to find out how Esther was faring and what would be done to her. Now, when each girl's turn to go to King Ahasuerus after undergoing the prescribed 12 months' care for women, for only then would their period of beauty care be completed, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and women's cosmetics, with which the girl would appear before the king. She would be provided with whatever she requested to accompany her from the harem to the palace. In the evening she would go, and in the morning she would return to the second harem, under the charge of Shachaz, the king's chamberlain, custodian of the concubines. She would not go to the king again unless the king desired her, whereupon she would be summoned by name. And when the time came for Esther, daughter of Abihail, uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as a daughter to go to the king, she did not ask for a thing other than what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, custodian of the women, had advised. And Esther found favor in the eyes of all who saw her. Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus, to this palace, in the 10th month, which is the month of Tevet, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won favor in his kindness more than all the virgins. He placed the royal crown on her head and made her queen in Vashti's stead. Then the king made a grand feast for all the ministers and servants, the feast of Esther. He lowered taxes for the provinces and gave presents befitting the king. And when the virgins who were gathered a second time, Mordecai was sitting in the king's gate. Esther would not divulge her ancestry or race, as Mordecai had instructed her. Indeed, Esther followed Mordecai's instructions, just as she had done while under his care. In those days, while Mordecai sat at the king's gate, Bigtan and Teresh, 2 of the king's chamberlains for the threshold guard, became angry and planned to assassinate King Ahasuerus. The matter became known to Mordecai, and he informed Queen Esther. Esther then informed the king of it and Mordecai's name. The matter was investigated and found to be true, and the 2 were hanged at the gallows. It was then recorded in the book of Chronicles before the king. Now we have chapter 3.
Yasher koach.
אחר הדברים האלה גידל המלך אחשוורוש את המן בן המדתה הגגי וינשאהו וישם את כיסו מעל כל השרים אשר איתו וכל עברי המלך אשר בשער המלך קוראים ומשתחווים להמן כי כן ציווה לו המלך ומרדכי לא יקרא ולא ישתחווה. ויאמרו עבדי המלך אשר בשער המלך למרדכי, מדוע אתה עובר את מצוות המלך? ויהי ואומרם אליו יום ויום ולא שמע עליהם. ויגידו להמן לראות העמדו דברי מרדכי, כי הגילה הם אשר הוא יהודי. וירא המן כי אין מרדכי קורע ומשתחווה לו, וימלא המן המה. ויבז בעיניו לשלוח יד במרדכי לבדו, כי הגידו לו את מרדכי. ויבקש המן להשמיד את כל היהודים אשר בכל מלכות אחשוורוש עם מרדכי. בחודש הראשון הוא חודש ניסן, בשנת 12 למלך אחשוורוש הפיל פור הוא הגורל לפני המן מיום ליום ומחודש לחודש 12 הוא חודש אדר. ויאמר המן למלך אחשוורוש, ישנו עם אחד מפוזר ומפורד בין העמים בכל מדינות מלכותך, ודתיהם שנות מכל עם, ואת דתי המלך אינם עושים למלך, אין שווה להניחם. אם על המלך טוב ייכתב לעבדם 10,000 כי כל כסף אשכול על ידי עושה המלאכה להביא אל גנזי המלך. ויסר המלך את טבעתו מעל ידו, ויתנה להמן בן המדתה הגגית צורר היהודים. ויאמר המלך להמן, הכסף נתון לך, והעם לעשות בו כטוב בעיניך. ויקראו סופרי המלך בחודש הראשון ב13 יום בו, ויכתב ככל אשר ציווה המן אל חשדת פרנאי המלך, ואל הפחות אשר על מדינה ומדינה, ואל שרי עם ועם מדינה ומדינה ככתבה, ועם ועם כלשונו. ושם המלך אחשוורוש נכתב ונחתם בטבעת המלך, ונשלוח ספרים ביד הרצים אל כל מדינות המלך, להשמיד, להרוג ולאבד את כל היהודים מנער ועד זקן, טף ונשים ביום אחד ב13 לחודש 12 הוא חודש אדר, ושלש להם לבוז פת שגן הכתב, להינתן דת בכל מדינה ומדינה גלוי לכל העמים, להיות עתידים ליום הזה. הריצים יצאו דחופים בדבר המלך, והדת ניתנה בשושן הבירה. המלך והמן ישבו לשתות בעיר שושן נבוכה. Chapter 4. I'm just keeping it going.
A little bit.
ומרדכי ידע את כל אשר נעשה. ויקרא מרדכי את בגדיו, וילבש שק ואפר, ויצא בתוך העיר, ויזעק זעקה גדולה ומרה, ויבוא עד לפני שער המלך, כי אין לבוא אל שער המלך בלבוש שק, ובכל מדינה ומדינה, מקום אשר דבר המלך ודתו מגיע, אבל גדול ליהודים, בצום ובכי ומספד, שק באפר ויוגצה ברבים. ותבואנה נערות אסתר וסריסיה ויגידו לה, והתחלחל המקהל מאוד, ותשלח בגדים להלביש את מרדכי, וכסיר שקו מעליו ולא קיבל, ותקרא אסתר לחתק מסריסי המלך אשר העמיד לפניה, ותצווהו על מרדכי לדעת מה זה ועל מה זה. ויצא התק אל מרדכי אל רחוב העיר אשר לפני שער המלך, ויגד לו מרדכי את כל אשר קרה, ואת פרשת הכסף אשר אמר המן לשקול על גנזי המלך והיהודים לעבדם, ואת פתשגן כתב הדת אשר ניתן בשושן להשמידם, נתן לו להרוג את אסתר ולהגיד לך ולצוות עליה לבוא אל המלך להתחנכן לו ובקש מלפניו על עמיו. ויבוא התק ויגד לאסתר את דברי מרדכי, ותאמר אסתר לחתק, ותצווהו אל מרדכי כל עבדי המלך ועם מדינות המלך יודעים, אשר כל איש ואישה אשר יבוא אל המלך אל החצר הפנימית אשר לא יקרא אחת דתו להמית לבד, מאשר יושיט לו המלך אל שרביט הזהב, והיה ואני לא נקראתי לבוא אל המלך זה 30 יום. ויגידו למרדכי את דברי אסתר. ויאמר מרדכי להשיב אל אסתר, אל תדמי בנפשך להימלט בית המלך מכל היהודים, כי אם החרש תחרישי בעת הזאת, רווח והצלה יעמוד ליהודים ממקום אחר, ואת בית אביך תאבדו. ומי יודע אם לעת כזאת הגעת למלכות. ותאמר אסתר להשיב אל מרדכי כנוס את כל היהודים הנמצאים בשושן, וצומו עלי, ואל תאכלו ואל תשתו 3 ימים לילה ויום, גם אני ונערותי עצום כן, ובכן אבוא אל המלך אשר לא כדת, וכאשר עבדתי, ויעבור מרדכי ויעש ככל אשר ציוותה עליו אסתר.
Chapter 5, on page 19.
No, I think I'm gonna. I'm gonna fall back in the interest of time. It's not in the right place.
ויהי ביום השלישי ותלבש אסתר מלכות ותעמוד בחצר בית המלך הפנימית נוכח בית המלך והמלך יושב על כיסא מלכותו בבית המלכות נוכח פתח הבית ויהי חירות המלך את אסתר המלכה עומדת בחצר נוצר חן בעיניו ויושד המלך לאסתר את שרית הזהב אשר בידו ותגרב אסתר בתיגה בראש השרביט ויאמר לה המלך מלך אסתר מלכה ומה בקשתך עד חצי המלכות ויינתן לך ותאמר אסתר אם למלך טוב יבוא המלך והמן היום אל המשתה אשר עשיתי לו ויאמר המלך מהרו את המן לעשות את הדבר אסתר ויבוא המלך והמן אל המשתה אשר עשתה אסתר ויאמר המלך לאסתר במשתה היין מה שאלתך ויינתן לך ומה בקשתך עד חצי המלכות ותעש ותען אסתר ותאמר שאלתי ובקשתי אם מצאתך חן בעיני המלך ואם על המלך טוב לתת את שאלתי ולעשות את בקשתי ויבוא המלך והמן אל המשתה אשר אעשה לכם ומחר אעשה קיבה המלך ויצר המן ביום ההוא שמח וטוב לב וחירות המן את מרדכי בשער המלך ולא קם ולא זם ממנו ואילן המן מרדכי חמה ויתאפק המן ויבוא אל ביתו וישלח ויבא את אוהביו ואת זרש אשתו ויספר להם המן את כבוד עושרו ברוב עיניו ואת כל אשר גילו המלך ואת אשר נישאו על השערים ויעבדי המלך ויאמר המן אף לא הביאה אסתר המלכה עם המלך אל המשתה אשר עשתה כי אמרתי וגם למך אני קראו לה עם המלך וכל זה איננו שווה לי וכל עת אשר אני את מרדכי יהודי ויושב בשער המלך ותאמר לו זרש אשתו וכל אביו יעשו עץ קבוע 50 אמה ובבוקר אמור למלך וידלו מרדכי עליו ובו עם המלך אל המשתה, שמח ויטב הדבר לפני המן ויעשה עץ. Who's got the next one? Yeah.
Chapter 6.
This is the best Megillah reader coming up here right now.
Do you need a stage hand or
No, I'm fine. Just have to put them in a certain order.
do you need your union card?
B'layla hahu nadada shnat hamelech vayomer levi et sefer hazikronot divrei hayamim v'yiyu nikraim lifnei hamelech v'yimatzei hatuv asher Higid Mordechai al Bigtana v'teresh Shnei Sarisei HaMelech Mishomrei Hasaf Asher Bikshu Lishloach Yad B'Melech Ahashverosh Vayomer HaMelech Mana Asa Yihikar Ugdula L'Mordechai al Zeh Vayomru Na'arei HaMelech Mishartav No Na'aseh Imo Davar Vayomer HaMelech Mi V'chatzer V'Haman Ba Al Lechatzer Beit HaMelech Hahitzonah Lemor LaMelech Litlot Et Mordechai Al Eitz Asher Hechin Lo Vayomruhu Na'arei HaMelech Alav Hine Haman Omed B'chatzer Vayomer HaMelech Yavo Vayavo Haman Vayomer Lo HaMelech Mala Asot Ba'ish Asher HaMelech Hafetz Bikaro Vayomer Haman Belibo Lemi Yakpot HaMelech La'asot Yakar Yoter Mimeni Vayomer Haman El HaMelech Ish Asher HaMelech Hafetz Bikaro Vayavi'u Levush Malchut Asher Lavash Bo HaMelech V'sus Asher Rachav Alav HaMelech V'asher Nitan Keter Malchut B'rasho V'naton Halavush V'hasus. You got a nay. Okay, V'chov ha'ir v'kara lefanav kacha yaseh la'ish asher ha'melech hofetz bicharo vayomer ha'melech lehaman maher kach et ha'levush Ved hasus kasher dibarta, vasehe lemordechai hayehudi, hayoshev b'sha'ar hamelech, al tipel davar mikol asher dibarta. Vayikach Haman et halavush vet hasus vel yibash et Mordechai vayarkivehu birchov ha'ir vekara lefanav kacha yaseh la'ish asher hamelech hafetz bikaro vayashov Mordechai el sha'ar hamelech. V'Haman nidchak el beito avel v'hafui rosh v'saper Haman lezeret ishto u'chol chavav
et kol asher karahu varomru. Lo hakamav v'zeresh ishto imizera hayehudi Mordechai asher hahilotalim polefanav lo tuchalot kenafol tipol lefanav odam midabrim imo v'harisei hamelech higiu V'yavhilu lehavi et Haman el hamishter asher asta Esther.
Chapter 7. We got 7.
You got 7.
That's not
Seven.
Okay, sir.
I have no props.
You have no props. It's okay.
Do you need her to leave her horse?
Yes.
You want
For
the horse?
moral. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think I have a horse. I don't have a horse in it. All right, I'm going to read this in a foreign tongue, English. All right. So the king and Haman came to feast with Queen Esther. The king asked Esther again on the second day at the wine feast, "What is your request, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your petition? Even if it be up to half the kingdom, it shall be fulfilled." So Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have won your majesty's favor and it pleases the king, let my life be granted to me as my request and my people as my petition. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, slain, and annihilated. Had we been sold as slaves and servant girls, I would have kept quiet, for the adversary is not worthy of the king's damage." Thereupon King Ahasuerus, there we go, exclaimed and said to Queen, what? King A, I like that, exclaimed and said to Queen Esther, "Who is it, and where's the one who dared to do this?" And Esther said, "An adversary and an enemy, this wicked Haman." Haman trembled in terror before the king and queen. The king rose in a rage from the wine feast and went into the palace garden, while Haman remained to beg Queen Esther for his life, for he saw that the king's evil determination against him was final. When the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet room, Haman was prostrated on the couch upon which Esther was. So the king exclaimed, would he actually assault the queen while I'm in the house? As soon as the king uttered this, they covered Haman's face. Then Mr. C, one of the chamberlains in attendance of the king, said, "Furthermore, the 50-cubit high gallows which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good for the king, is standing in Haman's house." And the king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows which he had prepared for Mordecai, and the king's anger abated.
And on that very day, the king gave the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Queen Esther. Mordecai presented himself to the king, as Esther had revealed his relationship to her. The king slipped off his signet ring, which he had removed from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai, and Esther put Mordecai in charge of Haman's estate. Esther yet again spoke to the king, collapsed at his feet, and cried and begged him to avert evil intention of Haman the Haggagite and his scheme which he had plotted against the Jews. The king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and Esther arose and stood before the king. She said,
If it pleases the king, and if I have won his favor, and the proposal seems proper in the king's opinion, and I be pleasing to him, let a decree be written to countermand those dispatches devised by Haman, the son of Hamandasha the Agagite, which he wrote ordering the destruction of the Jews, are in all the king's provinces. For how can I bear to witness the disaster which will befall my people? How can I bear to witness the destruction of my relatives? Then the king said to the queen and Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Haman's estate to Esther, and he has been hanged on the gallows because he plotted against the Jews. You may write concerning the Jews whatever you desire in the king's name, and seal it with the royal signet, for an edict which is written in the king's name and sealed with the royal signet may not be revoked. So the king's administrators were summoned at that time, on the 23rd day of the 3rd month, that is the month of Sivan, and it was written exactly as Mordecai had dictated to the Jews and to the satraps, the governors and officials of the provinces from Hadu to Cush, 127 provinces, to each province in its own script, and each people in its own language, and to the Jews in their own script and language. He wrote in the name of the king and sealed it with the king's signet. He sent letters by couriers and horseback, riders of swift mules, bred of mares, to the effect that the king had permitted the Jews of every single city to organize and defend themselves, to destroy, slay, and exterminate every armed force of any people or province that threatened them, along with their children and women, and to plunder their possessions. On a single day in all the king's provinces, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month of Adar.
Be happy.
The contents of the documents were to be promulgated in every province and be published to all peoples, so that the Jews should be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers, riders of swift mules, went forth in urgent haste by order of the king, and the edict was distributed in Shushan, the capital. Mordecai left the king's presence clad in royal apparel of blue and white, with a large gold crown and a robe of linen and purple. Then the city of Shushan was cheerful and glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. Likewise in every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his decree reached, the Jews had gladness and joy, a feast and a holiday. Moreover, many from among the people of the land professed themselves Jews, for the fear of the Jews had fallen upon them.
Chapter 9.
Chaya. Take it away, Chaya.
It's my honor. And so, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, when the king's command and the edict were about to be enforced, on the very day that the enemies of the Jews expected to gain the upper hand over them, and it was turned about. The Jews gained the upper hand over their adversaries. Woohoo! And the Jews organized themselves in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to attack those who sought their hurt. And no one stood in their way. Nope. For fear of them had fallen upon the peoples. Moreover, all the provincial officers, satraps, and governors, and those that conduct the king's affairs deferred to the Jews because the fear of Mordecai had fallen upon them. For Mordecai was now preeminent in the royal palace, and his fame was spreading throughout all the provinces. For the man Mordecai grew increasingly greater.
Yes.
And the Jews struck at all their enemies with the sword, slaughtering and annihilating. Wasn't so bad. They treated their enemies as they pleased. In Shushan, the capital, the Jews slew and annihilated 500 men, including these mamzers, who are 10 in number, the sons of Haman, whose names should not be notarized. No, they should not have notoriety. No, I refuse to say their names. No notoriety for these men. If you'd like to look at the names, look at them yourself.
You go, Heidi.
So those are the sons of Haman, the sons of Hamdasha, the Jews' enemy, but they did not lay their hands on the spoils. That same day, the number of those killed in Shushan the capital was reported to the king. The king said unto Queen Esther, in Shushan the capital, the Jews have slain and annihilated 500 men, as well as the 10 sons of Haman. What must have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? What is your request now? It shall be granted you. What is your petition further? It shall be fulfilled. Esther replied, if it pleases his majesty, allow the Jews who are in Shushan to act tomorrow as they did today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows, because they weren't killed enough the day before. The king ordered that this be done. A decree was distributed in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. The Jews that were in Shushan assembled again on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men in Shushan, but they did not lay their hands on the spoils. The rest of the Jews throughout the king's provinces organized and defended themselves, gaining relief from their foes, slaying 75,000 of their enemies. But they did not lay their hands on the spoils.
Nope.
That was the 13th day of the month of Adar, and they gained relief on the 14th day, making it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were in Shushan assembled on both the 13th and 14th, and they gained relief on the 15th, making it a day of feasting and gladness. That is why Jewish villagers, that's why, who live in unwalled towns celebrate the 14th day of the month of Adar as an occasion of gladness and feasting, for holiday making and for sending delicacies to one another.
Yes, we do.
We do. Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Ahasuerus, near and far, charging them that they should observe annually the 14th and 15th days of Adar, as the days on which the Jews gained relief from their enemies, and the month which had been transformed for them from one of sorrow to gladness, from mourning to festivity. They were to observe them as days of feasting and gladness, and for sending delicacies to one another and gifts to the poor. The Jews undertook and continued the practice they had begun, just as Mordecai had prescribed to them. For Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, enemy of all the Jews, had plotted to destroy the Jews, and had cast a pur, that is the lot, to terrify and destroy them. But when she appeared before the king, she commanded by means of letters that the wicked scheme which Haman had devised against the Jews should recoil on his own head. And they hanged him and his son on the gallows. That is why they called these days Purim, from the word pur. Therefore, because all that was written in this letter, and because of what they had experienced and what had happened to them, the Jews confirmed and undertook upon themselves and their posterity, and upon all who might join them, to observe these 2 days without fail, in the manner prescribed and in the proper time each year. Consequently, these days should be remembered and celebrated by every single generation, family, province, and city. These days of Purim should never cease among the Jews, nor shall their remembrance perish from their descendants.
Here we are.
Here we are. Then Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to ratify this second letter of Purim. Dispatches were sent to all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to establish these days of Purim on their proper dates, just as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther had enjoined them, and as they undertook upon themselves and their posterity the matter of the fasts and their lamentations. Esther's ordinance validated these regulations for Purim, and it was recorded in the book.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. It's recorded right thing here.
Come down.
Number 10.
Number 10, Rabbi.
Give me more to drink, please.
Rabbi Tilchin, recycled rabbi.
But tell me, can we find this on aisle 4?
I don't know if anyone heard your joke, but that was so funny. Honey, I don't know why you didn't want to say the names of Haman's sons. They're so easy.
How did you do it?
Pershanda, Dalphon. Okay, I won't. They should not be named. Okay, just. No, I'm rolling the Megillah. Here we go. Okay. Vayasem hamelech Achashverosh mas al haaretz v'yeh hamelech hayam v'chol masei takpo ugevurato ufarashta gedulat Mordechai asher gidlu hamelech Halohem ketuvim al sefer divrei hayamim lemalchei madayufras ki Mordechai hayehudi mishne lamelech Achashverosh v'gadol hayehudim v'ratzui lerov echav doresh tov liamo V'dover shalom lechol zaro Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Harav et rivenu Hadan adinenu V'hanokem et Nikmatenu Hamishalem gemul lechol evei nafshenu V'hanifra lanu mitzarenu Baruch atah Adonai Hanifra li'amo Yisrael Mikol tzareihem ha'el ha'Moshiach. Blessed are you, God, who exacts payment for his people Israel from their foes, and God who saves. And I just need to say, like, with great, reverence, that it's such a story, but if taken literally, could be hurtful. So when we say this, it is with a remembrance and a personal caution, is what I would say. So happy Purim to everybody.
Well done. Yes, you can.
Okay, everybody, so as we read in the Megillah, there are 4 mitzvot of Purim. One we just did, listening to the Megillah. Second is to feast, and we have dinner upstairs. Everybody is welcome. Go in and feast. And then if you haven't already given gifts of food to friends, mishloach manot, that is one, and gifts to the poor. Specifically tzedakah, that is affecting folks who are poor. So you have all between tomorrow evening to do these, and if you can't do it for whatever reason, you've got your whole life.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Guys, and isn't it great to read the gallows?
Jackie, so good to see you.